Hey there, film fans. I'm Jeff.
I'm Dave.
And I'm John, and welcome back to The Love of Cinema, a pod in which we'll challenge one another to discuss movies, both new and old, with a strictly positive critical eye.
That's right. And to avoid lazy negativity on our behalf, we have decided to make this a little bit of a drinking game.
There must be consequences.
So very simply, the game is anytime we say anything negative at all about anything, you're going to hear this sound. That sound means that we have to drink, and we hope you drink along with us.
That's right. So we're going to take an obligatory shot at the start of the show to get a little warmed up. So pour yourselves a glass, guys. We're going to talk about a film.
Cheers.
Says, please don't give me any more love. I'm still sore from the love I got at the BAFTAs.
Cheers.
Jesus Christ.
Well, okay, we might as well mention the BAFTA. So this was nominated for 9 Oscars, which I don't know if it was surprising or not. It's sort of Netflix's big, it was their big push this year. They have a couple other films too, of course, but like this was obviously, it's like their baby, so much money, and they are nominated for 9 Oscars. They were nominated for fucking 14 BAFTA awards, and they won 7 of them yesterday, including Best Director, Best Cinematography, Best Picture. No acting nominations, and they got 14. Without acting nominations.
I brought this up just on a whim. I didn't know Jeff had stats locked and loaded, but
BAFTAs, baby. Well, here's the thing about the BAFTA. This is what happens with the Oscar season. A couple awards, you got Critics' Choice, you got Golden Globes, and all of a sudden the same people win both of them. You just assume that they're going to win. And then the BAFTAs come along and goes, guys, fuck you all. Everybody over across the seas. You know what? We liked Austin Butler. I don't know if I would have voted for him. He's fantastic in the movie, but they were like, fuck it. Best supporting actor, Barry Keoghan. We like him. He's ours. Give it to him. You know, hey, Ki Kwan, you did an amazing job, but give it to Barry. And it's like they blew up the whole game. I thought it was really fun. But anyway, they loved this movie. BAFTAs. Actually, so they have 9 Oscar nominations. Everything Everywhere All at Once has 11, but has 4 acting nominations, which I think is great. We love acting in movies.
Yes.
But essentially this, you thought it was going to be Top Gun versus Avatar for all the production awards. I don't know. Anyway, we'll talk about the actual movie. How you guys doing today?
Good. You know,
I'm doing great,
we
man.
we got an interesting stat this week that we were charting in the Philippines.
Yes.
And I actually looked it up because it said we were in the top 100. And then I got the report email this week that says, look back on the week, and it said show history. So I clicked on show history. Dude, we were number 8 in the Philippines.
What? When?
A couple of weeks ago. We didn't do a show last week. So now we're number 120.
Yeah, we didn't do a show last week. We dropped the fucking 100 clicks.
Can't take your eye off the ball, kids. We were number 8 in the Philippines for film and TV.
What movie were we talking about? Well, what could we have possibly been talking about?
It happened around After Sun.
After Sun.
I know.
What?
I think it was a bit before that, but like it was around that time.
I don't know what we did before that.
Are you saying that we need to go do we need to go to Manila and do a live show? Because
let's fucking go.
Sounds like that is hilarious. Are you serious? How is that even a thing?
I know.
We love you, Philippines.
Yeah.
#Philippines.
We love the
us,
Philippines. Yeah, in the show notes.
Say them again. Philippines.
Go it in the show notes.
Dude, that is so funny. Philippines, they love movies. They love talking positively and constructively about movies.
Thank you. We love that. Also, if you're new to our episode, if you're new to our podcast, welcome. Again, we try to keep it positive. That's the name of the game while we talk about shit. We've seen a lot of the Oscar movies, but we also see a lot of fun movies. We saw Megan. John didn't want to, but we did. We saw Missing. He didn't want to, so he didn't. And
he was suspiciously busy that day.
My brother this weekend had a family weekend down in Southern California, below Los Angeles, and my brother was like, "Dude, have you seen Missing yet? Big fan of the show. Guy writes some really great music. Maybe you've heard of him, Dasein." And he was like, "Dude, have you seen Missing yet?" And I was like, "No." He said he actually really, really enjoyed it. He thought it was like a good thriller, and he said, you guys, he listened to your review as well. He appreciated that and agreed with that, and I feel like I really need to see it now. I told you I saw some of it over the summer in bits and pieces at the post place I was working, but I need to check it out.
The insider info. Dasein should have been on our show. We should have had him stand in. As long as we have one
trying to
say
get him.
in the
He
house.
will not. He's literally listening to this. Brandon, come on, dude. Just get on the show, dude. Come on.
Brandon.
Come on.
Brandon, one of Matt and Mark Movie Show's first Patreon subscribers. Dasein. Thanks for all your music.
Is it time for us to hit up a Patreon? Come at us, folks. Is it time for us to hit up a Patreon, or do you like how free and slutty we are that we just give ourselves out to whoever wants to listen anywhere around the world for free? Should we start a Patreon?
Yeah.
Like us, love us, subscribe, comment, let us know.
Dave. It's like, Who wants Dave to set up a Patreon for us? Like, come on. Okay.
Jesus
So,
Christ.
if you're new to the podcast, this is the format. We are going to talk about the movie, my brother. I promise you, we're going to talk about it. If you're busy, if you're in a rush, if you like economizing your time on the podcast, go in the show notes or just fast forward 30 seconds a couple times, and we'll be talking about the movie soon. But we like doing this stuff at the top. We got to reconnect.
Sorry,
John's been on vacation. We got to reconnect. We're going to be talking about All Quiet. It's a monster movie. We got to ease into this. We got to drink a little bit. We got to settle down. I got to get my words per minute count down a little bit. And we got to get through our gripes of the week where we
keep your words per
about
minute
shit.
up, because it stops everyone listening to the podcast on 2 times. Because I talk really slow, so I seem fast, but then they can't understand a fucking word you're saying, so that's put it back on 1.
Correct, but fuck you. My mom really liked your gripe during women talking, Dave. I wanted you to know that. Was it women talking?
Assholes.
Yeah, I think it was women
Probably
talking.
the Twitter assholes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
It's hard to nail it down which one that was. But,
yeah, so as soon as she was saying that, I was beaming towards my brother. I was like, see? We got a gripe. This is why we do it.
What? This is why we do it? I was like, podcasts matter.
I am really excited. Did you listen? Wait, last thing. Did you listen to the Deacons podcast with the director and cinematographer of this film?
I did.
John?
I did, yeah.
Okay, cool. Oh, wait. There's one more thing that's really important to share here. John saw this movie in theaters. So Dave and I saw this at home.
Yeah, very excited, yeah.
Like normal humans. And I just want to say really quick, this is not my gripe, but I've seen several movies that I saw in theaters at home. And I have to be honest with everybody, they're all completely different. It's so I started Banshees of Inisherin because I voted as my favorite movie of the year, and I've had a couple people say, it's like, really, it was darker than it was funny, and I was like, okay, maybe you just thought it was going to be in Bruges. And then I pushed play on it on HBO Max, and it was like watching it by yourself, and it's clearly
Different
about
experience.
like loneliness, and the music is different, and I'm just like by myself. It's like it was a harder 2 hours to get through than in the theater. It was like fucking great. I wanted to live there forever. But so everybody who listens to our podcast, we should be clear. We usually see these movies in the theater, and that's why we praise them a lot more than apparently people who see them at home. But John saw this one in the theater. We saw this at home. I wonder. I feel this might be that movie that really works in both formats.
Totally
We'll see.
see.
I have
I'm
a question,
excited to hear you talk
about that
about
in
it
a minute.
because sure.
All right. Well, I've been chatting enough here. So, anything else you want to share before we get into our gripes of the week, you two?
Nope.
All right, Dave, you have a gripe?
No.
I do.
Do it.
All right, set that gripe timer.
I think we all might have. I'm just gonna guess we might have a similar gripe this week. Let's hear it, Dave. Let's hear what your gripe is.
Okay, so these fucks that leak things on the internet. On Reddit this week,
fuck 'em.
some motherfucker got hold of a clip from Scream 6, which is due to come out in a couple of weeks, and posted it on Reddit with the title "Scream 6 teaser." Thousands of people watched it. It was it was the killer reveal from Scream 6. Literally ruined the movie for thousands of people.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but apparently, from what I read, the dickhead used his real name, so now the studio is going to sue him for like millions and millions of dollars. But it's like, what? Why? What are you doing? Why are you just ruining shit for everyone just for fun? Is it just for bragging rights? Is this like hacking in the 80s? It's like, I can crash your computer. Yeah, I've got bragging rights.
Yeah,
no, you're a
for
dickhead.
sure.
Yes.
Stop doing this shit. A lot of people.
How
are
hard
gonna
was
lose
he
money
when he
over
was
that.
watching people respond to it? You know?
Yeah,
it's
probably.
just what a. Yeah.
And where is he
just
now?
wants that
Still the same
attention.
fucking
It's
place
so
he
annoying.
was, with no followers, and yeah,
Wow.
That's bullshit. Hell
I
yeah.
hate them. I hate them.
No, I totally agree. You remember that story about when I believe it was Bryan Cranston who had one of the final season of Breaking Bad scripts stolen out of his car? Do you remember hearing about that?
Yeah.
Because they would not do anything digitally for that final season, and that's how. What the fuck? Just let it. Who cares? I've never understood the idea of trying to get ahead of a release.
Yeah.
It's never going to be as good as watching it in context. Like I don't get it. I've never understood it. It's not like.
It's
like
like
you remember back in the day when we used to like
just being the
share
first to comment
video
on
game
someone's thing.
passwords.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like sharing video game passwords and things like that. Like while the game is out. Like I understand why there were back channels for that. Never understood the early reveal. Nobody benefits from that. There were tons of Game of Thrones things like that. Do you remember that shit?
Yeah.
There's so many like Game of Thrones leaks, and I just never got it. Anyway, fuck that.
But-
Good job, Dave. I've got one.
Okay.
All right, go.
I'm speaking to the entire tech community. Fucking know your role. Are you kidding me with these AI platforms getting out of fucking control? We, as an entire human race, need to grab hold of the neck of every fucking person in tech that we know of and just fucking hold them a little bit tighter, because apparently this is happening before our very fucking eyes. We are all reading these articles. I don't know if anybody listened to the Daily this week. That was a terrifying episode.
Twice last week.
I don't need them to become fucking sentient for us to say that's enough for me to be threatened and concerned. Shut it down. Nobody wants this to happen. Shut it the fuck down. There is no future where we are in a Star Trek environment where somehow we use them as a friendly tool, and there's no absolute threat from that. I just don't believe that's the case. It's scaring the hell out of me. We're all just watching it like it's entertainment, and we need to stop it right fucking now. Jesus,
I for one,
am I alone here? Are you guys not
overlords.
creeped out by this?
Dude, I was creeped out when they asked it, did it have a plan for world domination? And it gave them its plan for world domination. And then they said, but what if you don't have access to the internet? And it had this detailed plan about how it would blackmail people to give it access to the internet.
Exactly. Yeah. That is enough. Because this is what I keep reaching you guys. And look, somebody fucking comment on this and tell me if I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about. But whenever you get into things like that, and they say, no, it's just based on word prediction. When you start walking these things down a rabbit hole far enough to where their word prediction becomes what we refer to as humans as speculation, that's enough for me. That's what I would do if I did have that thought. Yeah, that's fucking fine. Jeff, are you not freaked out, dude? I know you listened to the Daily. That episode terrified me.
Did you see the story of the professor who found he basically had an assignment, a writing assignment handed in, and it was obviously written by an AI? And he failed it. He said it took him 20 seconds to realize that this was written by an AI. And from that point on, after he failed that kid, he insisted that they refer to him as Professor Voight-Kampf. It's a fucking test in Blade Runner.
Yeah. I am freaked out. I think we just are. First of all, capitalism, right? I'm not an expert on capitalism, but I know that
is fueling it.
Well, it's a rat race. Because what are they going to do? Stop?
Yeah, it's just a race now. Yeah.
Are they going to shake hands and say, okay, let's all agree to stop? No, they're racing to the top or the bottom, however you want to look at it. And there's nothing, it's off the chains. It's off the rails. They probably thought this was a success. And so now they're just sitting there, like, oh, now we just have to rail it in. We have to rein it in. But obviously, at some point, something's going to come to life. I just have a feeling
we're going to look back. Our kids and grandkids are going to be like, how did you let it happen? And we'd be like, I don't know. It took like 2.5 weeks. And we all just thought it was kind of funny. And we heard some podcasts about it, read some articles, and then it was too late.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then it was game over before we knew it was even beginning. So I don't know. You're right. Capitalism is driving it. But anyone who takes the influence of our podcast seriously, hear me now. We're doomed. Jeff, what you got?
I have a lot. I was going through my list, but after yours, I think I'm going to go with an easy one. All right.
You're on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was serious. Sorry about that.
Guys, we will never ever, I swear on my life, we will never be the greatest country in the world. We say we are, but we will never be the greatest country in the world until we do this one thing.
Jeff Daniels, Newsroom, Pilot, 2014.
Okay, hold on. No. Until we figure out how to use stairs. If we can't use stairs, you can't possibly tell me we're the best country in the world.
Yeah, come on. Robots with AI can use stairs.
Do you understand that if you're
New York subway,
if you're in a crowded place and you get to the bottom of the stairs, your journey's not done yet. There's other people on the stairs. Or if you're at the top of the stairs, you don't just get to stop and look around, right? When you get there, you have to just assume you're part of motion, right? And of course, this is the same about like subway doors. When you get on, you stand there. But really, stairs, we are so fucking bad at stairs, especially when there's a train there, which we've kind of already talked about these in the gripes. But if you're walking slowly and there's a train there, and then you just get to the bottom and you just stop, honestly, you kind of have to expect to get bumped. And I don't mean like I'm going to tackle.
Let it out.
I'm not saying I'm going to tackle somebody who is
listening. This is an extension on my revolving door rant a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, but it's everywhere. It's in Macy's. It's at Penn Station. It's at the subway. It's at hotels. It's everywhere. You get out and then you just stop. Elevators. You get out of the elevator. I was at fucking the New York Sports Club. I was at the gym, and I know it's ridiculous to take the elevator. At the gym, like use the stairs. You're there to like exercise, but I took the elevator and I get to the top, and so it gets out of the elevator, it just stops because I guess they were like looking around of where to go.
Stops.
Am I glass? Am I invisible?
Doing it just on sidewalks now. When my phone went off, I'm just going to stop dead in the middle of the sidewalk. It's fucking anarchy out there.
Yeah.
To be fair, I think one of the things that education can embrace is more movement, less time sitting around and talking and thinking, and more spatial awareness things. I do think that is something that would benefit us all, which would hopefully in 40 years make
it'll help with the walking,
easier.
it'll help with the driving, everything.
My friends
Dang,
and I
with the
used to joke about,
Australian,
you know,
I mean, the
if
New
you
York
had,
driving.
if you had, driving. If you had,
What?
if I we used to always joke about if you had, Jesus
Did you just
Christ.
say my mother would like that one?
No, I said you motherfuckers can't drive.
Oh.
You're not
Drink
wrong.
up.
You're not fucking wrong. Nobody uses turn signals. My friends and I used to always joke when we were growing up about the James Bond license to kill, and I would kill people who do shit like that. I would. I'm sorry,
Jesus.
world, but I probably wouldn't make the big picture world a better place. But that guy who stops at the bottom of the stairs with just double tap, right, and I would just move right past him. Fucking PP7 to the back of the head. You're welcome. Everybody else behind me, just walk over that dead body.
Do you remember that was
God,
the first
that
question I
fucking
asked when I
bothers me
got
so much,
here?
dude.
Like, it was like, yeah, everyone's like, oh, you got to be here 5 years to be a New Yorker. And I'm like, yeah, fuck that. At what point am I allowed to push these fuckers down the stairs in the subway? That was the only rule I
Really
cared
does
about. Like,
make
at
me
what
feel
point can I
better,
do
dude.
that? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like in the old
bothers me
days
so
where it's
much.
like, I don't know if they did it or not, but I do know that if they weren't here, this would be a better place. Okay.
I always tell people who would visit New York, imagine there are 10 people who want to move faster than you right behind you at all times, everywhere you are. You are always in the way of someone. Just assume that and you'll be fine.
Anyone I know who's coming
All right,
here,
let's do
I
it.
send them the glove and boots, get out of the way video. It's worth a look.
Good. All right, friends, we have to get into this movie. Our fans are beckoning us to get into the episode. So,
Yeah, please.
sorry. It is time for us to now officially talk about All Quiet on the Western Front, the movie that reminds us why we keep going to war, unfortunately. Little background here. This is based on the famous novel called All Quiet on the Western Front, which is, of course, a German novel written in the 30s. Fuck it, I don't know anything. 29.
Yeah.
And it was made into, I believe, 2 films, but there's one famous American movie in the 30s, I believe. And Edward Berger, who's the director of this film, is German, and his daughter was reading this in school. I'm going to guess our equivalent to high school, and essentially said, "Dad, you have to make this film. A German should remake this film. A German should make this book." And he figured it was time, so he included a little extra addendum to the book and to the original movies, which is this Daniel Brühl character, who is this sort of he's the head of the German delegation suing for peace. Who was eventually essentially blamed almost single-handedly for the creation of Nazism taking off, and really the reason to eventually go back to World War and World War II is they basically thought they didn't lose. It's just these democratic socialists gave us a bad deal. It's their fault because they're weak, and so he was assassinated about 4 years after he did this. So anyway, they added that too, but it really is about one young soldier who him and his friends at the ripe age of, I think it was 17, wants to go to war despite the fact that it's been going on for 3 years. And I guess they didn't know what was happening to all of those young men who never came home, but they were very excited to go to war. And then they spend the very big bulk of this movie in and around the trenches on the Western Front fighting against the French. How's my setup? That's the movie. All right. So
Pretty
John
good.
saw this in the theaters. I think I'm going to read the description here. The biggest name is that Daniel Brühl character to us Western audiences, but it really centers around the character Paul Baumer, who's played by Felix Kammerer here, who is sensational as a young actor. He's really, really amazing. And he has a friend named Stanislaus in the film. So we got to shout out Stanislaus, who's played by Albrecht Schuch. So that's enough setup. I'm very curious to hear what you guys think. I saw this twice. I saw it once 2 weeks ago and once again this past week. Both times at home. Once a little bit of iPad time the second time around.
Jeez.
I apologize for nothing. Netflix released this. I'm going to read the description, then I would love to kick it off with our initial thoughts. What'd you think? What'd you feel? Spoiler free.
iPads are allowed at home.
What'd you say, Dave?
iPads are allowed at home.
Fuck, man, I keep having a burp. A young German soldier's terrifying experiences and distress on the Western Front during World War I. Is that even a complete sentence? Wait, hold on. Let me read this again. A young German soldier's terrifying experiences and distress on the Western Front during World War I.
Yes.
Okay.
That is a sentence. It's an awkward sentence.
Versus, I know what you mean. It almost wants to be like a tale
possible.
of a young German or something like that.
Yeah,
or a tale of a young German soldier's experiences in distress on the Western Front during World War I. I feel like, anyway, whatever.
It's possible they took the German logline and badly translated it.
Did Chat GPT translate this for IMDb? All right, we got to get into this movie. Dave, you watched this at home. What did you think? What was your initial reaction, takeaway of?
First, I have a question for John. When you saw this in the theater, was it in German or English?
German.
Please say German. Jesus Christ, yeah.
Great. Okay, cool. Because I started this and it started with English, and the first thing I want to say it started with, and everyone was fucking British, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Like, and it was dubbed badly. Like, well, it wasn't badly, but it was like they all had almost neutral or British accents, and I ended up actually going in and switching it over to German with English subtitles. And it was anyone who tries to watch this on Netflix immediately switch it to German. The movie is 100% better.
Guys, this is their native. It's the whole point of remaking this movie is to make it a German film.
Nothing sells, because I watched about 20 minutes of it in English before I realized I could switch it over, and nothing sells better than when you switch that over to German. It's just a better film.
When they do the ADR, do they do it one at a time? Because you never believe they're all joking around. You know, when they're in English, there's 6 guys. You never believe they're just shooting the shit. It's very obvious that these are bodies disconnected from heads, disconnected from voices a year after they filmed this stuff. You know.
Listening to dub stuff, you never really get the original intent because it's usually a different director directing the ADR session and stuff.
Exactly. It's usually each country has their own team that will do it separately as part of that distribution's team. Like it might not even be directed by it's probably not directed by the director ever. So don't ever do that. Always watch with subtitles.
Glad Netflix actually paid some actors, but
I will say straight up,
weird.
I don't like war films. Anything that caters to the glorification of war is the bane of society. Like, I don't like them. Almost every war film that everyone loves, I don't enjoy them. I don't like them. Fortunately, this is the complete opposite of anything I've ever seen before in the way it was done. It's
nice, dude.
Intriguing, devastated, enraging film. Absolutely. Like I said, swap over to German. The impact is ridiculous. Like, the difference in impact, and I really, like, I was a little scared. I was like, how graphic are they going to go? And they really just walked a perfect balance between like the horrors of war, and it never quite got to Saving Private Ryan's opening half hour. Ever. Like, there was a couple of scenes that are a little bit gory and a little bit tense, but it never built that. It was more about the almost like his experience and just the whole senselessness of it and that sort of thing. So I enjoyed the way this was structured. It was a perfect balance for me. I really enjoyed this.
Fuck yeah, dude. I love that.
What was it like in theaters?
It was an unbelievable theatrical experience. I mean, you know, we've been kind of joking about this with this movie the whole season, so I'm not going to only talk about it from this perspective, but I'm shocked that Netflix didn't put this in a wider release for a longer period of time, because this is the kind of movie that does really, really well in the theater. And seeing it, not just because of the experience of you getting to succumb to a very large spectacle of war with wonderful sound. There was something really powerful about watching something this intense with a bunch of other people. And that is kind of one of the things you get out of a theatrical experience. I heard this described, and it's on posters too, but you know, I had a wonderful Q&A after my screening with every department head. They were all there. This was at the Academy Museum, and it was really special to get in to watch them talk about this. And one of them brought this up, and then I started to notice it was on some billboards around here. One of the taglines that they use is, "This is an anti-war epic." And it's so true that it's something that had this amount of money and production behind it. And yet, as Dave is saying, I completely agree that I think a lot of good war films should have this kind of flavor to it, but this is a really great example of, especially from that German perspective that I know we'll get into, how can you not come away from this without realizing the tragedy of the human condition, that we have so often found ourselves thinking this was necessary. There were so many times in history when like this is what it came to, and the extra that extra piece of perspective that everybody who is watching this knows what was going to happen in less than 2 decades because of this war. It just added this other element to it. And to get that German perspective was so special. Technically, I was so blown away. I'm excited to talk to you, Dave, about how much they did with visual effects, but more traditional visual effects with layering and mats and really live action stunts and good tricky camera moves. And Dave, I completely agree that the Normandy scene in Saving Private Ryan is a brilliant piece of filmmaking.
Yes, it is.
But because you don't stay with Tom Hanks the entire time, there is something observational about it, and it becomes very gory because of that. This movie is very gory, don't get me wrong. There was a lot of blood, but because there's a single camera approach to it throughout, you do feel like you're emotionally bound to this young man the entire time, which does something different. There's almost something more. If Saving Private Ryan feels a little bit more gory, this one felt a little bit more dreadful to me. I was on the edge of my seat. And
they hit that perfect midpoint between Saving Private Ryan and 1917. Yeah,
and I know we're going to allude to the other recent, really wonderfully brilliant, 1917 World War I movie. And yet I completely agree. This also had a first-person perspective approach with single camera, but I never thought about it in a good way. I wasn't thinking about 1917 when I was watching this.
Me either.
So I had a great experience, but I got to see it in a theater, a gigantic, beautiful theater, Atmos sound, so I was really, really overwhelmed. I'm excited to talk about it. Jeff, tell us how you felt your first time, and then tell us how you felt your second time.
Well, I'll start the second time, actually, because I started watching it, and there's a couple action sequences. By action sequence, I mean children getting murdered, which I very shamelessly was texting you guys. I try to keep it quiet usually with the movies, but you guys hadn't seen it yet, and I was like, are you guys still waiting to see it? And you're like, yeah, I haven't seen it yet. And I was like, cool, get ready to see a lot of children get murdered. And of course, I'm exaggerating the word murdered, but it's fucking brutal, and it does make you feel that way, that these are kids. They have no fucking idea what they're doing, and it is brutal. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, if you take a look back at the 2.5 hours or so, it was paced really well. But when you're in it, when you're in the thick of those moments, especially from that first, they sort of do this crane shot into. They talk about it on Deacons, but it starts looking down. It's actually quiet, and then as it gets closer, you realize it's bodies, and you realize you're in no man's land as the bullets start hitting, and then the camera just swoops and starts moving as if it's on the ground. And I didn't even realize I was on a battlefield, and now all of a sudden, everywhere around me is just you can't tell the two enemies apart. You don't know who's on what side. Like, genuinely, they're shooting. He threw a hand grenade type thing, and I was like, did he just throw that at his own people? I don't even know who he's throwing that
nobody
at.
Knows.
Yeah, it was fucking.
They're all dressed the same, like in Dune.
So the opening is amazing.
So it was. I mean, it is. Yeah, from the very get go, you know you are in capable hands, and this movie is not going to. This movie's going for it, but it's also. There's a legato to the way it was filmed. It's not Saving Private Ryan, where it's very handheld, and it makes you feel sick watching it. You're watching this person puke, and then like dizzily you switch over to somebody else who's getting killed. It's like, this is very smooth. So it does almost seem like it's like we do want you to observe. We want you to be a part of it, but also it is like you're on the Jurassic Park ride seat. You know what I mean? It does. I don't know. It provided this really interesting texture watching it for me that I appreciated, and I mean, it really the thing that's going to stay with me is, of course, that it's brutal, but I'm not going to remember the brutal moments in particular. I'm going to remember the kids talking and hanging out, and that's hard. I think that's genuinely hard to do. Like, even Saving Private Ryan, the knock over the years has become, and I did rewatch it somewhat recently, and just the dialogue and the speech, it's like, it's almost too conversational. It's almost too movie. It's almost, you're watching a movie. I can start to feel it as they're walking through the countryside and they're talking about things. This movie seems so centrally focused in their plot and the story that it's like, I just remember the look of him looking at the pictures of the, when he pulls, there's like the little things, the conversations, we want soldiers, not children, while they're recruiting children to go to war. Like these little fucking things. They figured it out. The costume, the handoff of the the outfits that, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. It's like those are the things that are, and then of course the ending. I am gonna remember it, even though the second time I'm watching this was like, God, why am I fucking doing this to myself again?
Nobody will think they had a first shit day at work more than these guys, to be honest. Like, it's a nice brisk walk into basically 75% death. Like,
that the guy, how good is that line where he was like, the ministry, whatever, I don't know who it was. It's like the military, the ministry gives you 6 weeks to live. They want to get 6 weeks out of you. They even said it like that. They're like, if you give us 6 weeks, you did a good job. But there's no way you're going to make it. There's no way you're going to make it the whole way.
Yeah.
6 weeks at best.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Where do you guys want to head next?
And I think just the big point that I do want to make though is that Dave was texting, I don't know if I'm going to like this, the war films. Jeff had already made some serious and joking comments about how intense it was. And a really good war film is intense. They're hard to watch. But when you are in brilliant, brilliant hands, there is still an entertainment compelling. It is going to get the medicine down without destroying you. So even if you're like, I don't know if I want to watch something like that. Yes, it's still going to rock you. It's going to take its emotional toll. But it's so well done. This movie is so well done that I think you're going to find yourself at the end with the catharsis you're looking for, and not just feel like you watched a bunch of, exploitation of war. It didn't feel like that to me. No. Did it feel like that to you guys?
Not at all.
Okay. No.
This was like basically it. You could tell what was coming from the beginning. They all, secretly join, and they all get their uniforms, and they rock. And that scene where they're just tearing the tags off the uniforms when they first get the uniforms, it's opening. Like, yeah, that was. I was like, oh, and then. But like when you get into the nitty gritty of it, it eases you through it. There's the battle, then there's the aftermath of the battle, and that's two different emotions. And like I have a tendency to sort of switch some of my emotions off when I'm watching these sort of films and just like view it objectively. And this one got me. This one got me good. Like I was in for the ride. It brought you in, and it gave you hope, and then it smashed that hope, and it smashed all that like joy, and then it continued to like pour on you. Then it started to make you angry. Yeah. And after then the anger went into hopelessness, and then back to anger, and it was a journey, man. I went on a fucking journey with this thing, and that's hard to do.
You know the famous Gene Wilder thing with Willy Wonka, where he has to do like the fake limp and then the fall and then the flip, and he's like, I will only do this movie if I can do that. And they're like, what a weird fucking request. Why? And he was like, is that they can't trust me. I don't want to be deceitful. Like they need to know off the bat that I'm going to be deceitful. I can't just pull the rug out at the end and feel like an asshole. So I'm exaggerating. I think I'm exaggerating what he said, but that's basically it. I loved that whole sequence where you have all of these people, whether it's the laundry, the people actually washing the clothes in that just bloody gigantic fucking vat of bloody soaked things, the people sewing them, most of them are women. I imagine they weren't getting paid very much, if anything. I'm wondering how indoctrinated they were. They all seem very straight-faced. None of them seem like they were affected by it at all. And then he gets the uniform, and you know who it is because you've seen the person in the opening frames. And then they rip the tag off, and they say, oh, it was probably too small for that guy. And you already know, you're like, oh my God, these kids they're just getting lied to. My whole life I grew up thinking,
patched up hole in it.
And we know this. And to what you were saying before about it being pro-war, I think the director said, I think it was Edward Berger, but it might have been his cinematographer, James Friend. They said that like there was this old saying that every war film was pro-war. And that was like the Top Gun worry with everybody on set was like, is this too pro-war? And then, of course, the Vietnam movies sort of changed that because none of the Vietnam movies were pro-war. But in this, I always just believed that the Germans were the enemies. But in truth, the kids had, and Band of Brothers does this in World War II, but these kids had no fucking idea what they were doing. They didn't know why they were fighting. No. Why is it that in 1917, which the year in this movie, not the film, but basically almost the end of this war, they were like, let's go to war. Let's be war heroes. And none of them were like where we hope with Russia, which is like, are you guys pissed off that these people are dying? Can you please stop sending your sons and prisoners because like they're never coming back? These kids want to go to war 3 years in, and they're losing 40,000 people a week. Like the insanity of how they've been lied to for that long, that consistently really fucking drove me insane. Of course, they did a good job.
What I felt it though. Another testament to the storytelling, that hype speech that the man gave, the government man, to the people who signed up. By the end of that, I was like, if I was one of those boys, I would have been ready to fucking go. I would have felt like, let's do it, dude, for Germany. Like, they got me. Like, if that was even, it does still happen. I know.
Yeah,
Europe has
like
this
there's
amazing history. The nationalism over there is just.
We've now had, well, no, but I'm talking about everywhere. We've had 2.5 world wars, Vietnam, all that shit. And yet you've still got people signing up and listening to what people are like saying. And it's just like you're walking to your death, dude.
Yeah, seriously, we need poor people in America. Otherwise, nobody's going to war, because they do it because they get mortgages and they, gives them
they get university degrees. They think it's going to like get them ahead and that sort of thing. I mean, and sometimes it does. But like I've met and seen some people that are just wrecked, and that's now. Like,
well, let's get into the spoilers, because I think that leads very organically into some lovely juxtapositions of liberty that they took with the story here.
The Kaiser wants soldiers, not children. Alert.
Spoilers are on.
Yeah.
We also never see war from the losing side. One of my favorite
things.
We just don't see that very often.
Yeah, that's fair.
Iwo Jima,
except for every single Vietnam film. You know what I mean? Like that was something I thought about while I was watching that. No. I mean, Edward Berger, the director, has talked so much in a lot of really wonderful interviews about how important it was for him to make this, from the German perspective. And I'm so glad he did. He was so right.
Yeah.
And I was wrong. One thing I've never heard him talk about.
One thing I've never heard him talk about specifically, though, is was there any kind of cue that he took from the power and clarity that our best Vietnam films deliver as American films? They really, there is something very special about the absurdity of what those filmmakers who kind of grew up or literally fought in the war, if you're Oliver Stone, were able to bring to those kinds of stories, versus brilliant filmmakers who chose to take on a war that they didn't necessarily live through, which there are still really great people who do that. This just, the entire time, the perspective just made it so authentic that sometimes, as an American who is 3 generations removed from this time period, at the very least, I don't know. It just made me feel like there's this image that I have always had in my head. If I were to go to a war like fucking World War II or something like that, and I get gunned down, I'm lying on the ground and I'm looking across the field, and not too far from me, there's another guy from the other side who might be dying. And we both have a look in our eyes like, what are we doing? Like, just what is the point of this? Yeah. This is the kind of movie when there is no nationalism attached to it. It is, the point of it is to try to free yourself and be, against it. This is the kind of movie that just shows you how amazing this kind of movie can be when it is delivered correctly. People talk about how The Godfather and certain films like romanticize certain dark subjects. Martin Scorsese with capitalism and gangster warfare and all these kinds of things. I feel like this, every now and then movies come along that are so well made that it doesn't necessarily, they're not trying to propagate, isn't this bad? They're just so perfectly made with such a specific attachment to a protagonist's perspective that you can't help but walk away feeling what that person may have felt. There's anyone who knows this story of All Quiet on the Western Front, from reading it or from watching the original movie, there is almost a moment at the as this movie is wrapping up where you think, is this going to be the classic war tale of how do we recover? How do we live as survivors? And then it gets taken away from you. Yeah. You realize that no one survived this war. And I just thought it was so brilliantly done. Anyway.
Yeah. Sure. The gush alarm. The first gush alarm goes to John.
Well-earned gush alarm. Yeah. I mean, I think I know one of the scenes you're talking about with the crater, where he, the two of them get in that one-on-one fight, and he like stabs the fuck out of him.
Oh my god! And that's hard, and that's harder for him than the rest of the stuff.
But also, my wife was telling me. Also, I want to say, my wife loved this adaptation of the book. Absolutely loved it. And if you want to hear how
what a reader.
If you want to hear how she can react to adaptations, I recommend our Green Knight episode, because that didn't go so good. She absolutely loved this. But she did tell me while we were watching that scene that in the book, apparently that takes place over 12 hours. He's down in that crater with him for like 8 or 12 hours or something.
Shit.
and it takes him that long to die. So I feel like translating that to a film medium in the way they did was perfect, because it was like it condensed his dilemma, and it
had an urgency.
And it was like it still felt like it took ages, but that was just good editing and directing.
So if I understood the podcast correctly, the book is also partly to blame for the Germans basically just overcoming World War I guilt by just blaming it on certain people and then getting mad and eventually getting ready for another war. This book essentially being apologetic, they thought was like a sign of weakness, and it wasn't German, and it was, I don't want to say all the terrible things. You can just probably assume what they were thinking. Specifically blaming the socialist Democrats, who they also associated with, some particular groups of people. But like this, it's always someone's fault. How much better would society be if we just apologized? And how many people got mad at this book and didn't actually read it? You know what I mean? I do feel like, I think that's another, we should also mention that, I know we're in spoilers here, but the parallels, obviously Russia and Ukraine came to mind for me a lot. There's plenty of other wars going on right now. We have Syria, we are being shown exactly a little bit deeper of what's going on in Syria. There's literally one road that's open to aid because of Assad and Russia and whatever. And it's like, how fucking stupid are all of these things?
Us in Afghanistan.
Oh my God, us, Afghanistan,
and Vietnam.
And how stupid it is, how much we're lying to people, and I forget what I was talking about.
Right? It's
very easy to get
sidetracked.
Fuck.
You said how they blamed the book for.
But we didn't. Yeah, but most of the people who probably turned on it and tried to kill this guy didn't read the book. Like the people who tried to kill Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, like I don't think they actually know anything about her. They just like, this is definitely a movie about this is definitely a movie about pissed. Yeah. This is a movie about indoctrination. Yeah. And I'm not trying to pretend like us in America are better. I'm certain, obviously not. But like, man, that's what really is happening.
Bring it back to the film. The one thing I think I loved about it was because I was thinking about it afterwards, and I was trying to think of the one thing that makes it stand out from any other war film I've seen, and there isn't one. There's nothing that makes it stand out singly. It's the whole. When you put it all together, the way it's constructed, like from editing, sound, all that sort of thing, that final product elevates itself above, and that's a sign of a really good filmmaker.
I think you're right.
And I think I was thinking about that too. That like, there's nothing singular about the way that they approached making it that made it a new way to see war, a new way to make a war film. And honestly, as someone who's thinking about school and everything, and like this pressure of like, God, you got to be the new great, brilliant, totally do something new thing. But every now and then you get reminded that if you do it really well and you stick to the principles, the sum of its parts will transcend itself. And it can be something that feels fresh and that feels unique as you experience it, even though there may be nothing completely brand new about this. God, I hope they hear that as a compliment. If we ever were speaking with the filmmakers,
yeah, right.
If they go to the Philippines, they'll hear us.
Yeah, it's playing everywhere in the Philippines.
Jeff, to your point, just very quickly, because I did want to bring it up because he said it on the Deacons podcast, and I would be so excited excited might not be the right word, but grateful that they chose to stick with this path. Apparently, Remarque, is that his name? Erich Remarque, who wrote All Quiet on the Western Front.
Oh yeah.
Also wrote a follow-up novel later in the 30s about what, for a lack of a better term, might be their Reconstruction period in Germany, how they were kind of trying to move on and try to adapt as a country post-war with that shame and everything before the beginnings of the rise of the Nazi Party. And he was saying he was interested in
came along and went, hold my beer.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Fuck you, Adolf. Oh my goodness. I would love to hear him make that, just to go completely away from all this war and just to sink into the day-to-day life of people struggling with those financial hardships that we all know, again, enriched by the pressure of knowing what was going to happen right after the credits roll historically. I hope he explores it. I wanted to ask you guys about a technique that I think is thematically evident from the very beginning, and it struck me from the very beginning. They are establishing, and it begins, ends with it, and I think they go back and forth with that added element, Jeff, of cutting back and forth between the story of Erzberger and the negotiations that are going on in the meeting place. Contrast and juxtaposition between stillness and quietness, and fucking bombardment of war and death.
And not just that.
Could you guys? Were you thinking about it when you were watching it?
I thought about it in the context that we've cut from these kids dying on the battlefield to this motherfucker complaining that the croissants are stale.
Oh yeah,
and I wanted someone, anyone, to bomb that motherfucking train. I was just like, can we just kill these fuckers? Because they're the ones that, of course, they're letting people die while they negotiate or haggle over, 1 or 2 points in a contract.
I was relieved that they moved around. I was worried we were going to be in the trench the whole time, and I was like, I really get it. The guy, I don't know if I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have sat there in the trench the whole time. And so we had the multiple storylines, and we had I don't even remember what his name was. The guy who's like the head of the local. Was he the general? The local general, I guess. I mean, obviously, it's obvious, but he played it so well. The actor, and of course,
he really
well
did.
Written,
I wanted him to die so hard.
The way he was talking about his father winning 3 wars. He's like, "What is a soldier without a war?" And he's like, I think he says something like, "I will fight tooth and nail until this war is over." While he's having someone light his cigarettes, change the log in the fire, and pour his wine, and feed his dog better than the soldiers are getting fed. He's not fighting tooth and nail for anything, not a single thing. Yeah. And so I think they did a good job with that, because again, that could be. I know it's very powerful in the movie, but it really could be very cheesy. It could be very obvious and very like almost boring and mundane the way that they carried that.
By that point,
God, it was so good.
By that point, I was all in. I did empathize with the main character, and I'd lived with him for a bit. And when we cut to these guys just having fucking dinner and talking about while you can hear the bombs in the background and shit, I got mad. I got fucking enraged, and I was just like, you motherfuckers just sitting in your comfy train with your first class service, and it made me so mad. And that's another mark of a good film. I got fucking furious.
I also got Malcolm McDowell vibes from our leading guy, so I liked seeing him like in regular life, because he had this like thing about him where he didn't seem like just like a regular old good guy. Like the 2 guys in 1917 I really liked, but they both seemed like good old boys, like there's something about this guy, the way he lied his way in. There was something about him that seemed like he had like a little bit of an edge, and I liked watching him snap and go through. I mean, we go through so much where he's with all of his friends and he essentially witnesses his friends one at a time go.
Whether on the outdoor toilet, just having a conversation, like it was.
Oh man, that was a good scene.
Yeah, what a way to stage that too.
So to take the goose chase was really fun.
I loved how they established. I agree with everything you guys are saying too. In like the meat and potatoes of that contrast was super important. But for me, I just thought the opening was so incredible. That shot of the foxes. The mother, the suckling baby foxes, the shot of just very ambient sounds of these trees, these massive, massive wide shots of landscape. It gave me a chance as a viewer, because if I'm being totally honest, I'm not a huge history buff in general, but I know as much as the average person about World War I, which is probably not enough. I've seen the movies that are made about them, but there are not nearly as many movies and documentaries about World War I as there are about II.
They tried to kill the Duke.
Like I'm approaching it. And I'm Turkish, and I feel like the Ottomans were, I feel like I should know about this, and I just don't. So what I loved about it was that not only did they set up like in terms of aesthetic, but they gave me a chance to approach this thing where it made me think about Banshees, when they, you kept hearing the bombs. Every now and then the Banshees would cut away and you would see them and they would say, what are they fighting for? I don't even know what they're fighting for.
Good luck, whoever you are, whatever it is you're fighting for. I get it.
So when we cut from woods, foxes, woods, big shot of and you finally hear in the distance, doom, 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 doom. There was just a moment where I felt like he's going to allow me to ask the same question. Why are they fighting? And then you get on the inside of it finally through a couple different perspectives, and you realize it's the same bullshit that has existed in almost every war, which is usually dictated by very powerful, rich men. This one, of course, also has that lovely, more complex term, because World War II is still seen as a just war because of what Hitler was doing inside his occupied territories, which we all agree, of course, was fucked up. This one was truly an empirical line drawing war. So it's always a little bit complicated. So it was just I appreciate it so much that they allowed us to kind of approach this from, it's okay if you don't really know what's happening over there in the distance. Well, we're going to show you that you don't really need to know all the details to realize that this never should have happened. And then we're going to also take you through these places where maybe through Erzberger's sequences, we can show you that, yes, we started this, but we are not defined by our political leaders' ambitions. Germans lost just as much, if not more, than anybody else in these wars, right? The people who didn't want to be a part of this and who were lamenting this. As an American who fucking did not want us to go to fucking war in Iraq and the Middle East, and I'm sure many people who protested against Vietnam, we are sometimes historically defined by our leaders' ambitions. And, Germany is, it's been hated on so much. And it was just so refreshing to allow someone to bring you into this place where you were going to be able to experience the contrast between, isn't this fucking intense, and war in general is hard. And also, this is how some of us felt about it. And this is what we've learned. I don't know.
But also, like, as well, I want to say, like, with the empathy that you build with that main character, when we got to the last orders, where it's like there's an armistice kicking in at 11, and so he's like, everyone be there at 11, we're going to run one last. And I was like, I'm almost shouting at the TV, like, fucking why? Why are you trying this? The line didn't move the entire fucking war. Why are you trying to take it right now, like 10 minutes before the armistice? Too? Yeah. And it was just...
The guys who were like, I'm not fighting. And they fucking
they shot him. Yeah. Yeah, but for want of 10 minutes. And then, of course...
Did that really happen? Like, blow the whistle, 11:11, everybody stop killing each other? Like, absurd.
I don't know.
Did you think that really happened?
Oh, I mean, that's that they presented it. I'm pretty sure that's how it happened.
I mean, I'll assume
that is what they said, like in the postscript. Yeah. And you're right. The amount of distance that no man's land actually moved and didn't move. It's just
a couple hundred meters
boys with their fucking toys. It really does make me want to just like women take over. Would this have happened if women were in charge?
This motherfucker just set a whole courtyard full of people to their death for want of 10 minutes.
He said, at this rate, we'll conquer France in 180 years. Was one of the lines. And then he said, but soon Germany will be empty. No, but you know what's funny? So, and this got me even more watching the second time, because I noticed the time when he goes to the infirmary the first time, before the guys with the stabbing of the fork in the neck. Oh my fucking God, Jesus Christ.
That was brutal.
They just want to give him a meal, and he knows, because he knows he was shot in the femur, he knows he's done. Oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm just reliving it again. So anyway, so he goes to the infirmary, watches that guy die like that with the fork, while the other soldier just like eats his food. And then they go and they try to get
comes
the goose
over and takes it from next to the corpse too. Like,
I mean, it's hungry, you know?
That was incredible. What a good
He goes to
detail.
get the goose. He doesn't even get the goose. I will say, the first time they get the goose, they had a really good zigzag pattern to try to get rid of the gunfire. They did a nice zigzag approach. That was class work right there. So the second time they don't have the goose, they're running, and obviously the kid kills him, and it's fucked up.
Yeah, that was the tension build there was amazing.
And then he carries the guy so far. And then he gets, so two things came to mind the second time, especially, which is, number one, if he just went a little slower with the guy, he wouldn't have been back in time, so he wouldn't have had to go in that last little battle, you know? And so trying to get him to the infirmary essentially had made him go to the battle. And then, of course, the guy dies. But what really got me is that was basically the last of his friends. So he literally watches every single one of his friends, which I think is the point. I think the structure of that was really well done.
Yeah.
Where he witnessed every single one of his friends die. And when you're out there running around, you have no idea who's living and who's dying. But it really, I think, if I remember this correctly, his original group, he witnessed them all one at a time. But what really got me is
most of them were on the first day.
Most of them were, yeah. But then his new friends, like anytime he made a friend, like you could just assume that person was going to die. Then at the very end, when he's in that, and he's just his ghost. He's almost like the guy from 1917, where it's just like he's just completely ashen. And they say, okay, go. The way he turns is like a full-on mummy or zombie. Like he literally, he's like, he doesn't fight it. He's done the catch-22 thing where he's gone too far. So he is officially insane. Yeah. Which is,
it's like I can get shot here or maybe get shot there.
And then he just turns around and starts walking, and he's no longer a human anymore. He's a total corpse. So you kind of should have expected the end. I should have expected the very end, even though was still holding out hope.
I'm sure
I got
there
a real
are
sense
some,
of loss
there's
at the
some,
end.
Yeah, I have no doubt there are a plethora of dissertations by cinema studies students who have written about whether or not he actually physically dies, or if they are just showing us that he was dead by that point. Didn't matter if somebody killed him. There's no life left after you put humans through that kind of
the
thing.
way his eyes were open.
The soul was taken so long ago.
Yeah.
God, it was fucking.
With
It was,
underwear.
and you know what's sick? What's so disgusting is that it was beautiful. Do you know what I mean? Like, the film, it was so beautifully delivered that I wasn't afraid to deal with that. We knew it was coming, and yet by the time you get there, and the other guy, the new guy, is collecting the half of these dog tags, and you know you're gonna get to that to Felix, and he's going to be dead, and it has to happen. It has to be the full journey, and it was so compelling and entertaining in such a moving and genuous way that I wanted to be a part all the way to the end, and I just can't say enough about it. This movie really came out of nowhere.
We definitely don't mean entertaining as in I had a great time watching this. I mean entertaining as someone they made something incredibly magical about a very difficult topic.
How do we get you from A to B or from WY to Z at the very end when you're just
I can't think of a single I can't think of a single misstep in the filmmaking in this. I now understand why it's up for Best Picture.
And even the things that aren't on the page
really
or in the
is
scripts or anything, the way that I just thought, that's the last thought I'll have about this, is the texture of the French versus German negotiations. The tension was completely palpable. It was wild, but the way that the French are saying, like, well, okay, if you don't want people to die, then sign the thing, right? They're just the look in the guy's face, rather than say what very easily could have said, you started this war, you killed all of us, fuck you, I don't care about you, I hope you all die, or so whatever. Like, but he just did it on his face. And when he sat there and goes like, well, come on, so many people are gonna die if you make us wait 3 days. The look in the guy's face, and he looks down, and you have no idea what he's going to do. If he's going to punch someone, if he's going to start yelling, and then he just picks up the pen and points it at him. It's like one of the most powerful parts of the whole movie, because it says all of the stuff that France was thinking without them having to like spoon feed it to us for the sake of the history books. I thought it was really powerful. So anyway, that was the last. Anything else about the production design? I love the fact that they didn't use the color red unless it was essentially death or blood, but they tried their best to like avoid it, despite the fact that John's theater was literally the reddest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. If I cut someone's body open, I wouldn't see as much red as you saw in the theater.
Yeah, I did love that they didn't overuse the bleak blue tone on the battlefield. Like the movie evened out when you weren't in the, like, they went gray more than like blue, but like the movie evened out to show like the full color when they were away from the front line and waiting for movement or something like that. Like the normal bits of life that were happening around them was in full bright color, as if it wasn't even affected by all the death going on not far away.
I just want to point out that
the French had great food. Oh my God, their food was so great in the trench.
Yeah,
fuck.
that was kind of funny.
Oh yeah,
it was kind of funny.
Wow,
these guys are stuffing brie cheese down their throats while they hear gunshots and stuff going on
sausage,
outside.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And then the rats while they're in there with the tanks, man. Oh my God, the fucking tanks, dude.
Yeah,
that tank sequence was really incredible. I just want to point out that how unique is it? Yeah, how unique is it that someone like Edward Berger, we're kind of living in a world now where this is probably the cost of having most people work in streaming television nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a household name for film direction, and they gave him a lot of money to make a World War I epic.
In a while,
and he's not a spring chicken. He's got a lot of time to make some really great movies, but he's not. We are in a different environment now. I'm glad he got this opportunity, but it just makes me wonder how many brilliant directors are directing your episode 3 and 4 of some show on Netflix or HBO Max, and they could be pumping out things like this that have, are fucking brilliant, massive, singular pieces of art.
That's one of the things with Netflix. Like their deal for moving into a country is they have to show a certain percentage of local product, like local content, I guess, for lack of a better word. And so occasionally they produce these movies in other countries, and we're getting to see stuff we never got to see because that now bleeds over to America in an instant.
Right. Well, and the director, cinematographer, did Your Honor. He directed 3 episodes, and I think he was on the producing team for the Bride Cranston show, which I believe is getting a 2nd season, where he's the judge and his son commits a crime, and he tries to cover up the crime as a judge. But we got to thank. I mean, the 1899 didn't go as planned, so they canned the next 2 seasons. But Netflix is the international pull. We can thank Squid Game and Parasite, but really thank all of the other films that allowed those films to get up to the top, where essentially we as Westerners let them in, because that's what this movie was made, because it was an international movie. And I don't know if that happens without the huge success of these other international films coming over here. So I kudos that we're headed in that direction. I love Hollywood. John, you're in Los Angeles. It seems like it's a pretty good place to be, but it seems like we're considering the rest of the world more than we used to.
Yeah, thank goodness. Well, that's it. People, take it seriously. Sit down if you can and watch it. It is worth the watch, I promise.
All right, my friends. I think we can wrap it up there. So let's go into our final segment, which is What You've Been Watching, where we give you our recommendations of the week and tell you what we have been watching. Dave, we'd like to start with you. What you've been watching?
Well, this week I rewatched Ant-Man 1 and 2, obviously, because we're also covering Ant-Man this week because it came out. And I'm not sure if I've talked about it already or whether it was during the week off, but we just found this British series called Lockwood & Co. And I think if I did speak about it, I'd only seen 1 or 2 episodes. I've now seen the whole first season. It is some of the best, it's a ghost story. It's a little bit teen angsty, but the adaptation is amazing. It's done from 6 books. I think they covered 1 and 2 in the first season. It's fun. It's cute. It's scary. It's a good mystery.
Wow,
nice. There's a lot going on, and they built cool. Yeah, they built this alternate world where ghosts are real, and they kill people.
Where is it?
Netflix.
Netflix. Yeah, that one came from British Netflix.
British Netflix.
Nice.
Do they pay residuals? I'm kidding, John.
I am Jeff. You told me to let you know I'm into season 3 of Succession. If you want to start watching it with me,
fuck.
So I'm still sticking with that. And I watched a few movies. I'll save some for the next episode. I watched Pedro Almodovar's most recent film. I think it was 21 or 22. He released this called Parallel Mothers. As always, worth watching. That guy knows how to make a movie. Spain's premier late 20th century, 21st century filmmaker is fucking brilliant. And God damn it, what is her name? She's in so many of his things. Penelope Cruz is in this. Once again, she's been in a lot of his movies. It's worth watching. If you're into international cinema, I definitely recommend it. How about you?
So we have a second episode, so I'm going to tell you more about the stuff that I've seen. So I'll just say I watched Ant-Man 1 and 2. I'd never seen the second one, Wasp. I like the first one. The first one's fun. Wasp, it's 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 okay.
You
guys know
better than Doctor Strange too.
You guys know I have the Marvel fatigue, but we'll talk about Ant-Man, because I really I went to the movie trying to have fun this week, so you gotta listen to Ant-Man. I'll tell you what else I've been watching. I guess I'll say one other thing, which is Kunk on Earth on Netflix.
That's on my list.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, not every joke hits as well as others, and I do Kunk on Earth, and I do wish I got more of the interviews.
Yeah, it's with a
she gets these amazing people, and she asks them Daily Show type questions in the interview. It's just a comedy show. She says some funny shit. She says something like, it's hard to, she's in this old ancient ruined city, and she's like, it's hard to believe I'm standing in the site of the first ever city on the world, because I'm not. That's in Iraq, which is miles away, and it's fucking dangerous. So she does this segment about it, and she's like, no, I'm here instead, but let me tell you about it. It's funny. Anyway, okay, so exciting, people. Thank you so much for listening to our episode on All Quiet on the Western Front. Let's see if it's going to win 1 million Oscars. Who knows? Who cares? Can't wait to do Ant-Man with you guys right now. Check out our feed, people. Like, subscribe, review. See you next time, film fans.
Thank you, Philippines. Good night.
Philippines. Just keep saying it.